Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to History and Theory of Design. I'm just going to go over a couple of things from last week. I found an interesting website about Swiss style. If you're interested in Swiss style and exploring it further, this is a pretty good one. I've put the link in last week's module, topic 6. And you can see and learn a little bit more about Swiss style and what it is. It's about uniformity and geometry. And it's got some really good visual examples. Talks about white space and letting the text breathe. I think I find this really relevant to what we're doing with the magazine. And then it goes into talk about grid systems. So if you're not quite sure about the grid system, here's a really pixelated image for you to look at. You can see the grid lines up on the edge of the type, and then there's a space next to it called alley, and then there's another part of the grid. So I noticed on some of your ruling up of grids in the exercise 2 from design, you just have these kind of lines in between, but it really needs to be on the edge of the text. And here's another picture of the grid system. It's probably a little more easy to see because it's in colours. So the grid is to help you decide where to place the elements on the page. More examples. So if you want to have a look at this, you might take some time to read through this and have a look at it and understand the grid a little more. Also some good links to Paul Rand, which was one of the designers we looked at last week. Paul Rand and Saul Bassett, a couple of my favourites. So yeah, I mean, they did some really cool work and it's very distinctive. This is a nice example of some corporate design, and we're going to be looking at corporate design today. I'll pop a link to this into the chat here. But if you're looking for it, it's actually in the module week 6. Where did I put it? In topic 3B, 1950 to 1965. And it's just called More About Swiss Style. And you've got more about Josef Müller-Brockmann as well, who was the originator of Swiss style. Okay, so Swiss style kind of began in the late 30s, and then it got another, I don't know, it just kept going for a really long time. So you'll see it throughout design history. Okay, so getting into today's module, we're going to go on with these questions which were part of worksheet 6. So those are the questions that you're going to be looking at today. So starting from question 5 up to question 11, and they're color coded. There's a presentation in here. You should be able to access it through your RMIT account, but if you can't, that's okay. You don't really need to access it. It's just there, like, it's just there for you. I don't know why you can't access it. Like, you should be able to access it through your RMIT account. If you sign in with your RMIT student account, you should be able to access it just with your normal RMIT account and password. But if you can't, like, that's also okay. You can you can see it in this presentation and come back to it in the recording if you need to. So have those questions in front of you, and hopefully you'll be able to answer some of them from the lecture. And if not, you have to do some research. Remember the color coding there with that. Last week we started to look at Swiss style and the move from, we've moved throughout design history from really purely decorative forms on everything to more advertising design, I guess, and promotional design. And this week we're going to be looking at corporate identity, particularly in American design, because, as we said, America didn't suffer as much as other countries during the war. So they were a very rich economy, and they had a lot of money to spend on stuff. So they had, this desire for consumerism and mass consumerism, and there was a lot of money around and a lot of optimism, and, so there was a need for advertising. Okay, so this is a typical workplace. Look at this workplace. Would you like to work like that? Everyone in rows with no privacy, and, if you think about it, this is like, it really looks like a classroom, an old-fashioned classroom. So this idea of school and sitting at desks just gears you up for working in, this exact same environment, but you're kind of a bit more autonomous maybe. So, yeah, that's kind of what you have to look forward to. Very male dominated as well. I don't know what kind of office it is. They've got a lot of papers on their desk. Could be anything. Could be accounting, could be drafting, could be banking, who knows. But throughout the 50s and 60s, the American corporation was viewed as leading the way toward a big, beautiful tomorrow. Remember when we looked earlier in history when people had moved from an agrarian lifestyle, so working on the land, to then working in factories? Well, then there was this other need established for people to work in offices. I'm going to once again recommend that you watch Mad Men if you have access to that, or if you can get it from the library, or maybe you've already seen it. It's a really great overview of advertising and the industry, corporate America in the 50s and 60s. Corporations embodied the values of the 50s. So they were conformity, order, hierarchical power structures. We know what hierarchy is. That's top to bottom. And security. And why did they want this? Well, I guess the war was very chaotic, and there was not very much security, after the Depression. So this kind of straight-laced kind of, way of life was something that people really wanted. Employees expected to work at the same corporation for their entire career. So you'd come into this job at 16 and you would leave with a gold watch at age 60. With hard work, they'd climb the corporate ladder from the mailroom to CEO, slowly providing a better life for their family. And this, you have to remember at this time, it was very a male-dominated area, the world of work. Women did work, but there was still that sort of old-fashioned idea that men were the breadwinners and women stayed home and were housekeepers and raised kids and that sort of stuff. So this was a very 50s kind of attitude. Before the 50s, corporate identity was a rather casual affair. And what we're looking at on screen here is the development of the Lego logo. Lego logo? Yes, the Lego logo from 1934 to 1955. And it's changed quite a lot. I think it's really, it's really